Welcome to Incentives Matter, your guide to what's new in behavioral science and behavioral economics. Let's see what's really driving decisions. Imagine an AI that could give you perfect advice for almost any task. You'd expect your performance to soar, right? You'd be more efficient, make fewer mistakes, maybe even become a prodigy.
That's the logical assumption, but a recent study suggests something remarkably counterintuitive. Often, when AI tells us exactly what to do, we actually perform worse. Not just slightly worse, but noticeably, measurably worse, even when the advice is objectively optimal. Worse, even if the AI is giving the correct answer. That flies in the face of what so many people are hoping AI will deliver, a shortcut to perfection. What's going on there? It seems to trigger a hidden cognitive cost. The researchers found that when people receive explicit directive advice from an AI, essentially being told step by step what to do, their engagement drops, their creativity suffers, and their overall performance can decline. It's almost as if the very act of being dictated to by a machine saps their motivation and cognitive resources.
So it's not about the quality of the advice itself, but the way it's delivered and how that delivery makes us feel. That's a fascinating distinction.
Exactly. The core issue isn't the AI's intelligence or the accuracy of its recommendations. It's about human psychology, specifically our inherent need for autonomy and our response to perceived control. When an AI acts like a boss, telling us precisely what actions to take, it can trigger a psychological reactance. We feel our agency is being undermined, and that feeling can lead to disengagement and even active resistance, manifesting as poorer performance.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. We're not just passive recipients of information. We have an internal desire to figure things out, to own our decisions. If an AI bypasses that, even with good intentions, it could backfire. Are we talking about a broad range of tasks here, or is this specific to certain types of activities?
The research suggests this effect is particularly pronounced in tasks that require creativity, problem-solving, or sustained engagement. Think of it like this. If you're building a complex spreadsheet or designing a presentation, and the AI just dictates every single formula or design choice, you might feel like a glorified typist rather than a co-creator. That feeling erodes your intrinsic motivation, which is crucial for those kinds of open-ended tasks.
So for rote, repetitive tasks, maybe it's less of an issue. Like if an AI is telling a robot arm exactly how to sort widgets, the robot arm isn't going to have an existential crisis about its autonomy. But for human users, it's different.
Precisely. For very simple, unambiguous tasks where there's one clear right answer and little room for interpretation, directive advice might be fine or even beneficial for speed. But as tasks become more complex, more open-ended, or demand more cognitive effort and creativity, the "don't tell me what to do" effect kicks in. The human brain, it appears, wants to be an active participant, not just a relay station for AI commands.
It sounds like this is less about the AI's technical prowess and more about understanding human psychology in the loop. The paper makes a strong distinction between AI advice and AI nudges. Can you elaborate on that? Because it seems critical here.
Absolutely. This is where behavioral science really intersects with AI design. AI advice, as discussed, is often explicit and directive. Do X, click Y, select Z. It's a command or a strong recommendation. AI nudges, on the other hand, are much more subtle. They involve designing the choice environment to make certain options more prominent or easier to choose without explicitly telling the user what to do. Think of it like a default setting or highlighting a particular option or even structuring information in a way that guides a user toward a desired outcome, but always leaving the ultimate choice to the individual.
So a nudge might be something like, based on your past choices, we think you'd like this option, which is pre-selected for you, but you can change it. Whereas advice would be, you must choose this option to proceed.
That's a perfect illustration. With a nudge, you still feel in control. You can accept the suggestion or reject it. You still own the decision. With the directive advice, the AI is essentially usurping that decision-making process. The research clearly shows that nudges tend to preserve the user's sense of autonomy, leading to higher engagement and often better long-term outcomes, because the user feels more responsible for the choice and its consequences.
This brings up an interesting point about learning and skill development. If an AI is constantly telling me exactly what to do, am I actually learning anything myself, or am I just becoming dependent on the AI?
That's another major cognitive cost identified in the research, the de-skilling effect. When AI provides overly directive advice, users don't engage in the necessary cognitive processes to understand why certain actions are optimal. They simply follow instructions. This prevents them from developing their own problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and domain expertise. Over time, they become less capable of performing the task independently, essentially becoming reliant on the AI as an external brain.
It's like having a calculator do all your math homework. You might get the right answers, but you're not actually learning how to do the calculations yourself. So AI could inadvertently be creating a generation of less skilled users in various domains.
Exactly. And this has profound implications. If the goal of using AI is to augment human capabilities, to empower individuals, then simply dictating actions might achieve short-term efficiency gains, but at the expense of long-term human development. A coaching approach, where the AI offers suggestions, provides reasoning, or highlights patterns, allows the user to make the final decision and, crucially, to learn from it.
What about the perceived agency you mentioned earlier? How does that tie into the user's perception of the AI itself? Is the AI seen as a tool or as something more?
The perceived role of the AI is critical. If the AI is seen as a subservient tool that helps you achieve your goals, the nudges and suggestions are generally well received. But if the AI is perceived as an authority figure, a boss, or an external controller dictating your actions, then that's when the resistance kicks in. It's about the psychological contract between the human and the machine. Do I control it, or does it control me?
So even if the AI is genuinely trying to help, if it feels like it's taking over, humans rebel. This raises a question about scenarios where people might want directive advice. Say a complete novice trying to learn something entirely new. Would they still experience this cognitive cost?
That's a very insightful question, and the research does touch on nuance here. For absolute novices in a completely unfamiliar domain, a certain degree of directive guidance might initially be necessary to get them started and reduce cognitive overload. Think of it like a flight simulator for a new pilot. Initially, you need very clear instructions on which buttons to push. However, even for novices, the goal should quickly shift towards fostering independent learning and decision-making. If the AI never lets go of the reins, that novice will struggle to progress beyond the most basic level of competence. The sweet spot seems to be a dynamic approach. More guidance initially, gradually fading to more nudges and coaching as the user gains expertise.
And what about high-stakes situations? If an AI is guiding a surgeon or a pilot through a critical emergency where there's no room for error, would we still see this "don't tell me what to do" effect, or would the urgency override it?
That's a crucial edge case. In situations where stakes are extremely high, time is critical, and human error could be catastrophic, explicit directive advice might be preferred and even necessary. The cognitive cost of reduced autonomy might be outweighed by the immediate need for precision and safety. However, even there, the underlying principles of clear communication, explanation, and fostering trust in the AI's recommendations would still be vital. It's about balancing the need for control with the need for performance and safety. But for most everyday tasks, the autonomy principle tends to dominate.
So for AI developers and product designers, the takeaway isn't just about making AI smarter in terms of its output, but smarter in terms of how it interacts with human psychology.
Absolutely. The paper essentially provides a blueprint for designing human-centric AI. Instead of commanding, AI should be coaching. This means providing options, presenting choices rather than single directives. It means explaining why, giving the rationale behind a suggestion, not just the suggestion itself, which fosters understanding and learning. It also involves asking questions, prompting the user to think rather than just delivering answers, and offering feedback, allowing users to iterate and learn from their own decisions, even if they deviate from the AI's initial advice. And finally, personalization, tailoring the level of guidance to the user's expertise and the task's complexity, as we discussed.
This suggests a potential to mitigate what some people fear about AI, the idea that it will make us obsolete or turn us into mindless drones. If designed correctly, it could actually make us better.
That's the optimistic future this research points towards. When an AI respects human agency, it doesn't just improve task performance, it can enhance human capabilities, foster creativity, and deepen engagement. It moves AI from being a potential threat to autonomy to a powerful tool for self-improvement and learning. The cognitive cost isn't inevitable, it's a consequence of poor design choices.
So the challenge isn't just building more powerful AI, but building more thoughtful AI.
Precisely. It's about designing for the human-AI interaction, not just the AI's internal logic. This entire field of human-computer interaction, and now human-AI interaction, is becoming increasingly critical.
This has significant implications for how we integrate AI into workplaces, education, and even our personal lives. We need to be wary of AI aversion if systems are designed in a way that consistently undermines user autonomy.
Indeed, if users constantly feel dictated to, they might simply opt out of using AI or actively ignore its advice, even when it could be genuinely helpful. That would be a huge missed opportunity and a failure of design, not of AI capability.
So, to synthesize some of the key insights here, directive AI advice, even when accurate, can paradoxically lead to worse human performance and engagement due to a cognitive cost.
Another key insight is that this cost stems from a perceived undermining of autonomy, triggering psychological reactance and a don't tell me what to do instinct.
And then, nudges are generally superior to directives because they preserve user agency, fostering greater engagement, learning, and intrinsic motivation.
Finally, effective AI design must shift from a commanding to a coaching paradigm, offering options, explanations, and personalized guidance rather than explicit instructions, especially for complex or creative tasks.
This really makes you think about the future of human-AI collaboration. If we get this wrong, we risk not just suboptimal performance, but also creating a generation of users who are less skilled and more reliant. So the question for listeners then becomes, how often do we actually want an AI to tell us exactly what to do versus guiding us to make our own decisions?
And perhaps, how much responsibility are we willing to cede to an AI? And what are the long-term costs of that surrender for our own cognitive development?
That's all for this episode of Incentives Matter. Join us next time as we keep unpacking what really drives decisions. Thanks for listening.
Choose wisely, or at least know why you didn't.